Let's
I
do that
help
together.
you.
I know, yeah, so don't complain, yeah?
I don't.
You do.
I suggest that you might do. I just threw it. It was
Yeah,
like a
but
single
food
use.
has
Single.
거짓말하면 다, yeah?
Hey guys, welcome back to our channel.
If you're new here, my name is Lily.
I'm Yong.
Make sure to subscribe. So what's our topic today?
Today's topic is general characteristics of Japanese girls when it comes to dating. So I'm going to talk about pros and cons and also certain characteristics that may not be categorized as one or the other. Just a general characteristic that can be either pro or con depending on the context.
So let's get started.
Yep.
Yeah.
So first off, I'm gonna talk about pros of dating Japanese girls. I'm not talking about you specifically, but I'm talking about the holistic view of all the Japanese girls that I've dated. So
You have just one experience.
well,
Or have you?
that's what you like to believe. Right?
Are you serious? 거짓말하면 나야?
Okay. So I'm gonna start off with the pros. So obviously there are lots of conspiracy theories about dating a Japanese girl and how they're always so amazing.
Really?
How guys should strive to marry a Japanese girl. And I think in certain aspects, Japanese girls do live up to their expectations. One of the biggest pros in dating them is they are less emotional. What I mean by that is, I'm gonna just give an example. When we argue, once I hit my emotional threshold, then I start yelling. I start yelling, I might start using some harsh words.
Yeah, it's terrible, really.
I mean, in any culture, I think when a couple argues, I think it's understandable that they raise their voices and they start saying mean things towards each other. That's at least common, right?
No.
But what she has told me in the beginning of our dating experience is that I was the very first person to yell at her.
Yeah.
Like, she has never been yelled before.
Never like that. One shocking thing that I got from him is he threw the water bottle at the wall and it bounced off and came to me. Can you believe it? I would expect that violence will come eventually. Yeah?
So that was 3 years ago. And I wasn't aiming at her. I just threw it. It was like a single use. It's not like a heavy water bottle like that one. Like show it to them. It's not something like this, right? It's just a regular one-time use plastic water bottle that I have finished drinking.
Still.
And I just threw it randomly and just bounced off. And
Why do you throw it?
I mean, things happen, right? You get pissed and you react in different ways.
No.
But yeah, so I would ask her, how else would you argue, right? And her response was pretty interesting. She mentioned that you stop talking while both of us are too emotional to carry out any civilized conversations. Then after we have calmed down, we sync up again and we tell the other person what we want them to change.
I mean, otherwise, if you are emotional, you just tend to use the bad word, harsh word towards the other person you love and then hurt person, right? But it's not necessary. It's really not necessary. It's just meaningless time hurting each other.
There's a reason why I classify this as a pro, because I agree with what she says, but often it becomes difficult for some people to control their anger, emotions.
That's because they don't try.
So lately I have been more trained in more well versed in this aspect, in that I became more tolerable towards disagreements and I tend to stay calm and try to have conversations about what went wrong between us and try to fix those issues.
Yeah, he's getting better and better, but he was so bad back then. He get pissed and kick anything around him, throw anything around him, just yell at me and try to relieve his stress at me, even though he did something wrong or I did something wrong. Like either case, whenever we fight, either of us did something wrong, That's why we started fighting, right? Almost all the time. You shouldn't be mad at the other person because you want to be mad at them. You need to solve the issue in order to continue the relationship. Why do you have to be emotional so that you hurt the other person?
So if any of you decides to date a Japanese girl, then if you release your anger like you are used to in different cultures, then she might freak out and leave you. So
Yeah.
Alright, moving on to the second point. What I've gotten out of dating Lily is that Japanese girls tend to have stronger sense of responsibilities. So they want to fulfill their responsibility as a fully grown adult, as an individual. I understand that certain cultures train their females to be more inclined to the sense of entitlement as opposed to the responsibilities in a way that they feel like they're entitled to such certain privileges because they are female. And in my previous experiences, they used to get a lot of like, yeah, I want you to do my homework, or I want you to I want you to come and help me with this because it's physically arduous. I don't want to generalize this, but I have seen this both in my personal and dating experiences. It doesn't only come from dating someone. In general, there are certain girls who feel like they're entitled to certain privileges. Whereas Japanese girls, from what I have observed, they understand their responsibilities and try to accomplish them to the best of their abilities. And I respect that a lot. I believe they're fully independent compared to some of the other girls from different backgrounds.
Aren't you just comparing your ex and myself?
No, I don't want to get too deep into this topic because it becomes a little sensitive and a little political as well. I fully support that all genders are equal and they should be entitled
Then don't ask me to cook all the time. Let's
I
cook
help
together.
you!
I know, yeah, so don't complain, yeah?
I don't!
You do.
I suggest that you might do. You might want to cook.
That's what I want to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. And before we get into the cons of dating a Japanese girl, I'm going to talk about two characteristics of them which can be classified either as pro or cons depending on the context. So one is that they are very stingy with money, and by that I mean they love money. This can come in as two flavors. So when I say they're stingy with money, they're stingy with their own money, right? They don't care about the other person's wallet. So when it comes to dating, there are conceptions that Japanese girls tend to pay half and half. If you go to Japan, that's not true. Guys pay more than girls. That is not true. That is simply not true.
That's not.
Like maybe when they're like students, like when neither of them has enough money, then sure, maybe they're gonna split half and half. But if you become adults, like college or past college, you start working, then girls do expect guys to pay more. That's what they want. They sometimes take pride in how much the guy spends on them.
It's kind of true.
First of all, don't start dating a Japanese girl expecting that she's gonna be all fair, like I'm gonna be paying for all my shares, like so you don't have to pay for me. Sure, there could be some rare cases where that happens, but most of the times Japanese girls are just like any other girls, right? So what happens is when you're dating them, you end up spending more money, which to be honest isn't very different from dating any other girls. So that's really a con, right? They're stingy with their own money. But the same characteristic turns out to be a very positive, beneficial thing once you enter a marriage. Because all of a sudden, the guy's financial situation becomes her problem as they become a married couple. So all of a sudden, she starts caring about our financial situation. And she starts cutting down all these unnecessary spendings from our spending habits. So that characteristic that was a disadvantage became an advantage because the Japanese girl is typically good at managing the money. So most of them, like not all, obviously there are exceptions. It can either be a pro or con depending on where you guys are in the relationship and depending on the context.
True. Especially in our situation, maybe she's mostly talking about our situation,
No,
but
in general.
really? Are you
Yeah.
sure? In our situation, I was college student and I was so poor back then. But she wants to spend decent money for food or place we stay. His standard of spending money is different from my standard. For example, he wanted to stay at like more than $100 hotel for one night, whereas I need like a place to stay if I can sleep there, that's just all I want. So I'm okay with like $20-30 use hostel.
Yeah, as you grow and as you have more money, then obviously your standards will change, and that's understandable.
I appreciate that you paid for that, but too difficult for me to adjust your standard.
Well, once again, I'm not just talking about my experience with you. I'm talking about my holistic view of other girls that I've met, like a Kanna-chan or Hikari-chan or...
Random girl's name. he only has one Japanese girlfriend and talking about this like this.
But I also gather information from other sources too, so... And one, I think the biggest complaint that lots of guys have on Japanese girls is that they value their too much.